ושתי עיניי עוד נישאות לאור, רבים חוכי אך גם פרחי, ולפניי שנים רבות מספור. אני שואל ומתפלל, טוב שלא עבדה עוד התקווה. עובר מזמור מדור לדור כמעיין מאז ועד עולם. אני שואל ומתפלל, טוב שלא עבדה עוד התקווה. חי חי חי, כן אני עוד חי, זה השיר שסבא שר אתמול לאבא, והיום אני עוד חי חי חי, עם ישראל חי, זה השיר שסבא שר אתמול לאבא, והיום ימים ימיי ולילותיי, ובשמיים עמוד האש עוד קם. השיר בלי די, אפרוס ידיי וידידיי אשר מעבר ים. אני שואל ומתפלל, טוב שלא עבדה עוד התקווה. חי חי חי, כן אני עוד חי, זה השיר שסבא שר אתמול לאבא, והיום אני עוד חי חי חי, עם ישראל חי, זה השיר שסבא שר אתמול לאבא, והיום שהוא אחד. אני עוד חי ושתי עיניי עוד נישאות לאור, אז כל לחי לכל אור חי, לבניי המבקשים לחזור. אני שואל ומתפלל, טוב שלא עבדה עוד התקווה. חי חי חי, כן אני עוד חי, זה השיר שסבא שר אתמול לאבא, והיום אני עוד חי חי חי, עם ישראל חי, זה השיר שסבא שר אתמול לאבא, והיום אני חי חי חי, אני עוד חי חי חי.
הללויה לעולם, הללויה ישירו כולם, במילה אחת בודדה, הלב מלא בהמון תודה, והולם גם הוא איזה עולם נפלא. הללויה עם השיר, הללויה על יום שמאיר, הללויה על מה שהיה היה ומה שעוד לא היה, הללויה.
הללויה לעולם, הללויה ישירו כולם, והענבלים הגדולים יהדהדו בהמון צלילים, ואיתנו הם יאמרו הללויה.
הללויה עם השיר, הללויה על יום שמאיר, הללויה על מה שהיה
הלוואי ומענן תרד עלינו קשת, הלוואי שלעולם הזה יש תקנה, הלוואי ויום יצמח מתוך סופה גועשת, הלוואי ולא תאבד לעד המתנה, הלוואי שהמדבר יצמיח עשב דשא, הלוואי ועוד נשב בצל התאנה, הלוואי שלא נכאב ואיש אחיו יאהב, הלוואי ויפתחו שוב שערי גן עדן, הלוואי ויתמזגו מזרח ומערב, הלוואי, הלוואי ונחדש ימינו כאן כקדם, הלוואי ולא יישא עוד גוי אל גוי חרב, הלוואי ולא ננטוש את דרך התקווה, הלוואי והאדם יהיה רחום עד הערב, הלוואי שיש סיכוי אחד לאהבה, הלוואי שלא נכאב ואיש אחיו יאהב, הלוואי ויפתחו שוב שערי גן עדן, הלוואי ויתמזגו מזרח ומערב, הלוואי, הלוואי ונחדש ימינו כאן כקדם. הלוואי ויתמזגו מזרח ומערב, הלוואי, הלוואי נחדש ימינו כאן כקדם, הלוואי שלא נכאב ואיש אחיו יאהב, הלוואי ויפתחו שוב שערי גן עדן, הלוואי ויתמזגו מזרח ומערב, הלוואי, הלוואי ונחדש ימינו כאן כקדם.
בקסבה בחצי היום כשהשוק פתוח, הייתי ככה סתם הולך והחזה מתוח, כולם אומרים איזה קנון עובר בסמטאות, עושים שלום מכל חלון, כל הכבוד כולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, למי יש יותר כבוד, כולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, למי תמיד למי יש יותר כבוד. כשהקרב היה בוער והכיתה לא ססה, המפקד היה אומר אתה ראשון יא קאזה, כולם ידעו שקזבלן ראשון תמיד לצעוד, ומאחור הם צעקו כל הכבוד, כולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, למי יש יותר כבוד, כולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, למי תמיד למי יש יותר כבוד. אחד הולך עם בחורה ביפו בן 40, אם רק ארצה אצלי תהיה ישר בין הידיים, אך לא אפריע לבחור שלא יתחיל לראות, כי זה אצלי פשוט פרינציפ, לי יש כבוד, כולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, למי יש יותר כבוד, כולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, למי תמיד למי יש יותר כבוד. בשיכור לאיזה בר אני אותו מרגיע, אפץ לי מן השעון ישר לג'בליה, אבל אחר כך הוא חוזר ובקטן מאוד, מרים כוסית ועוד אומר כל הכבוד, כולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, למי
מתנדבים עושים חיים רק בישראל.
הכרמל יורד לים,
דיסקוטק נסגר מוקדם רק בישראל.
הקיבוץ והמושב, רק בישראל. ירושלים של זהב, רק בישראל.
ילדים לגן חובה,
כל אחד רוצה טובה.
רק בישראל. התפוז הכי מתוק, רק בישראל.
הירקון תמיד ירוק,
רק בישראל.
יום הולדת לאילן,
וכנרת מול גולן, רק בישראל. כל אדם הוא בן אדם, רק בישראל.
תקבל עצות חינם.
רק בישראל.
איזה יופי של מורל,
כל אחד הוא ג'נרל,
רק בישראל. צנחנים הם צנחנים,
רק בישראל.
טייסים הם טייסים, רק בישראל. לא ינום ולא יישן, יתנדב לחיל הים, רק בישראל.
לומדים ליד סנטר, לומדים לשיר ביחד.
אך קולי הולך לבד, בשיר על יום אחר
בארץ המובטחת, מתנדנד מצד אל צד. אני זוכר, כן, שבאתי לבחינות,
הכל נשכח, כן, מילים ומנגינות.
ואז חשבתי, כן, שהכל אבוד, שאין לי שום סיכוי, אני חוזר לגדוד. אין סיכוי, חוזר לגדוד.
Hello, my name is Sue Hector, and together with Shauna Merker, we are your Women's Philanthropy Co-Chairs for the Federation campaign. We're so glad you could join us tonight. The first thing I'd like to do is introduce our new line of Judah Co-Chairs, Josephine Nadel and Carly Leipzig. Shauna and I count ourselves lucky to have a dream team of two amazing women co-chairing Lion of Judah. They've put a tremendous amount of work into tonight, so you know it's going to be fantastic. We look forward to working with Joey and Carly on many more Lion initiatives throughout the year. Shauna and I would also like to thank Belvedere Vodka for being our cocktail sponsor. They help make our gift bags extra special, and we're eternally grateful. As a matter of fact, in just a few minutes, you're going to see a cocktail demonstration. So grab your ice and get ready. Please note, everything in your kit is certified kosher, the drinks and the snacks. So please enjoy. We also want to thank all the volunteers who delivered gift bags. With so many Lions attending tonight, we needed quite a team, and this event would not have been possible without them. So thank you. Tonight is about celebrating women's tzedakah. We are honoring every single one of you and the commitment you made to our community through your gifts. I believe in women's philanthropy and have been inspired by many women in this community who've shown me the way. I wouldn't have held any of the volunteer positions nor been a Lion of Judah without their mentorship and friendship. I am inspired by every woman here tonight. You truly show what it means to be a Lion of Judah. Being a Lion helps me pay it forward by mentoring other women into philanthropy and leadership. As you all know, COVID-19 has had a direct impact on our community and its institutions. Thanks to your generous support, Federation and the Community Recovery Task Force continues to be able to meet the increased need from our community. Toda Rabbah. You all stepped up in the 2020 campaign with incredible gifts, and we will be able to meet our partners' needs because of it. Sean and I are also pleased to announce that as Lions in the women's campaign, we raised almost a quarter of the total campaign funds and an additional $58,000 in emergency COVID relief funds. Your generosity is overwhelming, and Sean and I want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce Josephine Nadel, who will be welcoming the new Lions from the last two campaigns.
Thank you, Sue. On behalf of Carly Leipzig, my co-chair, and myself, I would like to recognize and thank past Lion of Judah chairs. 2018 and 2019, Dahlia Bresler, 2019 and 2020, Candace Thal, and 2020, Judith Cohen. Thank you so much for all of your hard work. I now have the very special honor of welcoming our new Lion of Judahs. We are thrilled this evening to announce that during the 2019 and 2020 Federation annual campaigns, we welcomed 3 new Lions. This makes our Vancouver Lions Den 198 strong. So welcome to our new Lions, Jody Crystal, Karen Levitt, and Dana Marks. Your Lion of Judah pin is a symbol of your commitment to leadership and giving. It is an example and an inspiration to others. It is a privilege and an honor to wear your Lion of Judah pin. I hope that you will wear your pin proudly as a symbol of your dedication to the Jewish community and Jewish life locally in Israel and around the world. In doing so, know that your commitment sets an example of caring to others around you. Lion of Judah is a remarkable sisterhood of women, of which you are now a part. Your positive energy, your commitment, and connection to Jewish life in our community and beyond is just as important as your gift. You lead by example, demonstrating your dedication to the Jewish community by contributing your time, your effort, and your tzedakah. So thank you once again. Now would everyone please join us in a Shehechianu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Mazal tov to you all. What does it mean to be a Lion of Judah? Being a Lion of Judah is not only a privilege, but a responsibility. We all have the opportunity to do more for our community, and I ask you to join me on the front lines of protecting and fighting social injustice, aiding the vulnerable, and building Jewish identity now and for the future. What does it mean to give? As Sir Winston Churchill said, we make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give. This statement resonates very intently with me. It encapsulates the essence of philanthropy. I believe that philanthropy can have the most impactful influence on our lives. It enables us to be aware, to connect, to be conscious, and to be conscientious of more than just ourselves. It allows us to connect with Jewish life, values, and legacy, and to help those who are less fortunate, those in need. Why did I become a Lion of Judah? I learned about tzedakah and tikkun olam from my parents, who worked tirelessly for the local Jewish community and for Israel. I witnessed their charitable works firsthand at the kitchen table and at the many meetings in our living room and dining room. They were role models. They gave time, energy, talent, and effort, and they gave financially according to their means over the years. Volunteer work and their connection to Jewish life was the fuel that literally invigorated and was the glue in our family. From a young age, I dreamt of being involved and being able to give. My mother was a proud Lion of Judah, and it was my dream to be able to join her as a Lion of Judah. She never preached or lectured, she led by example. Even though my mother passed away 6 years ago, Her line of Judah pins are a constant reminder of what it means to be committed to Jewish life. She left me a gift, a legacy of giving, caring, and connecting. The focus of our program tonight is inspirational women. Women who lead, women who give, women who achieve their goals. We would be remiss if we did not focus on two crises facing world Jewry: the COVID-19 pandemic and the deepening needs in the Jewish local community and abroad, and the ongoing challenges facing Israel, heightened by the current crisis. We are fortunate to be able to present to you two brilliant and inspirational women, women who mean business and women who mean philanthropy and tikkun olam. Dr. Gilly Regev, who has dedicated her scientific and entrepreneurial skills to the fight against COVID, and Ms. Anita Zucker, who embodies leadership and success in philanthropy and in business. But first, a l'chaim. Belvedere Vodka has been very generous in sponsoring tonight's cocktail, which you received in your gift package. Please watch your screen for a brief cocktail demo video. Let's raise our glass together and say l'chaim to life. And now the Belvedere Vodka brand ambassador will demonstrate how to make our cocktail. Hear me roar. L'chaim.
Hello, Lions of Judah, and thank you so much for joining us this evening for our virtual celebration. I'm Sabrine Doyle. I'm the National Brand Ambassador for Belvedere Vodka. It is my absolute pleasure and honor to be sharing with you this beautiful and simple Belvedere cocktail recipe for your celebration this evening. As you open your kit, you probably found a few small bottles and vials and wondering what to do with them. I'm going to show you how to make the Hear Me Roar Belvedere cocktail for your celebration this evening. So as you've opened your kit, you found a small little portion of Belvedere Rye Vodka, a small bottle of elderflower tonic, a tiny cute little bottle of orange cream bitters, some dehydrated lemons, and a rocks glass. Grab all those items and we're going to make the Hear Me Roar cocktail together. We're going to start off with Belvedere Vodka, which is 100% Polish rye vodka. Poland has over 600 years of distilling history. They know what they're doing, so this vodka has lots of character, lots of depth, and a lot of complexity. So measure out 1 ounce, and we're going to pour it right into our rocks glass. Grab some ice, and we're going to add that to our glass as well. So one thing about a good cocktail is making sure you're having good quality ice. And one of the key ingredients for good quality ice is good quality water. Belvedere, we source our water from underneath our distillery and run it through an 11-step purification system. So when you are tasting and drinking Belvedere vodka, you are tasting the terroir, you are tasting what Polish rye is. Keeping it nice and clean and fresh. Belvedere also doesn't have any additives, so what you are tasting is 100% rye spirit and 100% pristine, clean water. Next, we're going to add 2 dashes of Bitterman's orange cream bitters. So when you're using that little bottle at home, 1 squeeze to the top, that is 1 full dash. So put 2 of those into your drink. Next, we're going to top that off with Fever Tree's elderflower tonic. I'm pouring it just beside the ice. It's going to help mix in those bitters, mix in with the Belvedere. If you have a small spoon or a small straw, just give it a little stir. Just to make sure it's all well combined, so every sip is as delicious as the one before. Next, to finish off our cocktail, we are going to garnish it with a dehydrated lemon wheel. Et voila! the Hear Me Roar Belvedere cocktail. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Good evening. My name is Carly Leipzig, and along with Josephine Nadel, I am Lion of Judah co-chair for 2021. It is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Gili Regev. Dr. Regev is the CEO and co-founder of Sanitize, a pharmaceutical company that is harnessing the power of nitric oxide to treat bacterial, fungal, and viral infections, including COVID-19. Dr. Regev has a PhD in biochemistry from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, and she has spent the last 12 years in the field of nitric oxide, including tenure as the Chief Scientific Officer for Bovacor. Dr. Regev is pushing the boundaries of pharmaceutical sciences in a time where we truly understand, now more than ever, the value of science for treating infectious diseases. Her career and her expertise are truly an inspiration to us all. Dr. Regev, welcome. We feel very lucky to have you here with us tonight.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. So my first question is, you were born in Israel and did your PhD in Israel in biochemistry, but can you tell us about your earlier years in Israel, your studies, and also your most interesting career there?
Yes. I never thought I'm actually going to be a researcher or go into that. I did a Bachelor in Sciences and finished and wasn't really sure what I want to do with it. So I said, well, I'm just going to stay for a master's. I was offered to do master's in food sciences. And I said, well, that's interesting. I'll stay. And then I did my master's. And on the second year, I did a course in wine chemistry. And I was just fascinated by this. It was just the chemistry in wine is, for somebody who enjoys chemistry, it is fascinating. Wine is considered to be the second most complex fluid on earth after blood. Okay. It's an interesting field. And I said, that sounds really interesting. And then I thought, okay, maybe since I don't really want to go work after my master's, because I didn't find anything I want to do. So I said, why don't I just find something to do PhD in that relates to wine? And I started working in the wine industry. I started reading a lot, tasting a lot, getting to all kind of groups, and eventually worked, during my PhD, worked as a sommelier in what was considered one of the best restaurants in Israel at that point. I think I was the first woman sommelier in Israel.
Wow. In what city?
In Tel Aviv.
Okay.
And it just, I found this whole world fascinating. And that was all done kind of during me doing my PhD. And when I finished it, then one day, actually during my PhD, I had a very young kid at home. He was 2 years old. And one day I went to the university in the morning, and before I left, I said to the nanny, I said, please just don't hang out in big groups in the yard, because there were a lot of suicide bombers at that time. It was really stressful. And I came home that day and I said, oh my gosh, I don't know I can't live this life. Like, that's crazy, that's so stressful. And I said, maybe I'll take a little bit of a break and I can go do a postdoc somewhere else. And that's how I ended up here.
Wow. And how did you choose Vancouver?
It was a little bit like, let's look around the globe.
Right.
US was not an option. I didn't want to live in the US. Europe, I don't think would be good for Jewish people in Europe. So it was mostly Australia, New Zealand, Canada. Australia and New Zealand is just too far away, especially when I'm leaving all the family in Israel. So then it was Canada. When I looked at Canada, I always remember my grandma always said Vancouver is the most beautiful place on earth. So she had a very, very close friend here, and she's been here a few times. So I said, if we choose Canada, then Vancouver. And it was basically, that's it. Came to visit.
Did you think you'd stay for this long, or was it meant to be temporary, or you didn't?
I didn't have a plan. I started a postdoc. I wasn't sure that I want to stay in the university. I really didn't. I didn't want to do research to publish. Like I was looking more of something meaningful, and I was trying to figure out what I want. In the meantime, I did the Wine and Spirit Education Trust Diploma, which was another thing in the wine business. And I was teaching wine classes and just trying to figure out what I want. And that was for the first kind of 4 years here.
Right. And then how did you flip that to do what you're doing now?
I think that at some point I was looking for a little bit more of an intellectual challenge. There was something missing in life, and I started working at a lab at the university, and then one day I met Dr. Chris Miller, who's my business partner today. And he was, he looked at me and he says, "Hey, you're a biochemist." I said, "Yes." It's like, "I'm looking everywhere. I need somebody who have good understanding in chemistry, biochemistry." I said, "What do you need?" I said, "I'm working with nitric oxide." And he was working many, many years and really one of the world experts in using nitric oxide to treat what we call blue babies. So babies that are born with respiratory challenges, you give them to breathe a little bit of nitric oxide, and with seconds they turn from blue to red. Like amazing. Wow. And nitric oxide, which is a molecule that we all have in our body, but for many years was considered to be poison, turned into an approved drug to treat babies and saved many, many lives. So he was telling me about this whole thing, and he said, nitric oxide also have all these antimicrobial properties. So he was working in the past and trying to help with wounds, with infected wounds. So they put a bag on the foot and they started flowing gas into the bag because nitric oxide comes in gas cylinders.
Yes.
And it was just, it didn't make sense. You can't treat people like this.
Right.
So he said, I need to figure out different ways to deliver nitric oxide. So I came and I said, well, tell me everything you know about nitric oxide.
Right.
And I'm still learning.
So you didn't know that much about it before you met him?
I didn't know anything. And I think it's amazing that it's a nitrogen and oxygen. That's it.
Yes.
But it's such an incredible molecule because it does so many different things at so many different levels. And yes, if you breathe too much nitric oxide, it can kill you because it attached to the hemoglobin instead of oxygen. So if you breathe too much, it's dangerous. So you have to really understand what it is. And on the other hand, it kills bacteria, it kills viruses, it kills fungi. So what other molecule can do that?
Right. So can you tell us about the product that you have developed with Dr. Miller?
Yeah, so we spent quite a lot of years trying to figure out different formulations and got to a liquid formulation that releases nitric oxide within the liquid. And we can control the dose that it's releasing. You can turn the liquid and turn it into a gel or a cream, or there's all kind of ways around it depending on when. And this is basically creating a platform technology. So you have to write patents on this and make sure that you're all protected, and the patents are around formulation because you can't patent nitric oxide. We all have it. So there are challenges around this. And then we were trying to look at this platform technology. So this composition can treat sinusitis and diabetic foot ulcer and nail fungus and warts and athlete's foot and strep throat and a whole bunch of acne. Yeah. So what do you choose? Where do you start? And we were trying initially to say, why don't we just do a trial to see that everything that we see in the lab and we see how quickly this kills all these bugs can really translate to the real world. It's great that it's happening in the lab, but if I use the same dose that I think it's right as a foot bath, will it kill the fungus on people's feet?
Right.
So we did a study, we did an athlete's foot study, and we saw that really it does. It does. It's like 3 days, half an hour foot bath, and you get rid of your fungus completely. So at that point we said, well, why don't we take this to approval and then use this for diabetic foot ulcer, which was a huge personal passion for me. I just thought that it can do a lot of good.
Yes.
And my husband is paraplegic, and he gets all these cuts and wounds on his feet that takes forever to heal, and he's been using this. And he said, that's amazing. It's just,
really?
It's amazing what it does. So then we started trying to raise money. And diabetic foot ulcer is a graveyard. There are many companies who failed, and it was really challenging.
Wow.
It was couldn't really. It was hard. It was hard to justify valuation. I was a new CEO. I've worked in the industry before. I've been chief scientific officer, but I've never been a CEO. So it was a very steep learning curve for me.
So then where did you go after the diabetic ulcer graveyard?
So then we went back to the drawing board, looked at the platform and said, okay, which indications are big unmet needs and big markets, and we believe we can help. And we came up with onychomycosis, which is the nail fungus, and chronic sinusitis. Both of them are really huge market, and really there's nothing that treats them. People with chronic sinusitis suffer from headaches all the time, and they're living on steroids because that's the only thing that relieves the symptoms.
Right.
And there's nothing. And nitric oxide can do a lot of good, from treating the infectious part to reducing inflammation to potentially disrupting the biofilm, which is part of the problem. So we managed to raise some money, and we did a phase 1 and a phase 2 clinical trials, and things were going really well. And the phase 2 is ongoing. And it was ongoing when COVID started, and that's with the nasal lavage, so just wash of the nose. And we kept developing the other one. In the meantime, we managed to get a very large grant from the Department of Defense in the US for a diabetic foot ulcer study. Okay. So that kind of allowed us to go and do a study there. So we started that study, and then COVID started.
Right.
And everything was put on hold, and all the trials, and we kind of sitting one day, Chris and myself, and looking at each other and like, well, we have this nasal spray that I've been using for years every time I fly, just to prevent the flu. It kills viruses. We know it kills viruses. So let's do it.
Right. And it's worked in your personal experience. You don't get the flu.
No,
the rest of us.
Yeah, so I don't get the flu ever again. And it's really using it a situation when you can get infected, and on a little bit like a hand sanitizer when you need it, right? Yeah. So we applied to Health Canada and got a trial ongoing. Yeah. And then there were a lot of challenges with recruitment to this trial. It was really hard in Canada to recruit. I don't know why, but couldn't get a lot of any support here from government for recruitment, and just really struggled with getting people into the trial. It was a prevention trial. We eventually did 140 patients in this trial. Well, 100 of them got our treatment, and 40 got basically standard of care, so nothing. And problem was that we didn't get enough people on the standard of care getting infected, so we couldn't show the effectiveness. Nobody on the treatment got infected. So then we said, okay, how can we show an effect? Yes. Because in order, it's great. We showed great safety. No adverse events, nothing. You can use it, no issues at all in the trial. But we want to show that it's effective. So we did a study in the UK, and we went with a group in the UK that had a lot of access to patients early on when they get tested. And that's the important thing, because if you get tested and we can start you immediately on this, then we've got the best chance. And that's what we did. We did 80 patients in this trial. Half of them received just a saline nasal spray. Half of them received our nasal spray. It was double-blinded, so nobody knew what he's using. And they did nasal swabs every few days to see. And we got a very, very strong reduction in viral load in people that were using our nasal spray compared to saline.
Within a shorter amount of time?
A much shorter amount of time, and very strong reduction. So, and a good signal on the reduction of symptoms as well.
Yeah.
The study, in order to show reduction of symptoms statistically, you need a much larger study. But the viral load is correlated to symptoms. And most important, what we wanted to show there is that when people are already sick, your viral load is here.
Yes.
But when you just got infected yesterday, you're still here. So if we manage to bring it down within 1 day from here to here, then it's a no-brainer that if you use it daily, you're not going to get infected.
Right.
And that's where all the media were all over us. That's where it all started. We published these results, and it went just crazy.
Positive crazy? Or?
Positive crazy, but still crazy.
Yes.
So thousands of emails to our account. Everyone wanted to talk to us. Every company around the world wanted to take this, to distribute it, and then we started realizing that we need to manufacture seriously, right?
Yes.
Like we have. So this one was actually, it's a product that it was approved in Israel.
Right.
It was approved as a medical device
Okay.
in Israel. So
Is Israel the first and only to approve it?
Israel is the first. Bahrain approved it as well, the Ministry of Health. We're going through approvals in Europe as medical device. And the Canada is looking at it as a drug. So because nitric oxide is used for babies and it's on the prescription drug list,
Yeah.
they say if the active ingredient of nitric oxide, then it's a drug. It doesn't make sense. I mean, the amount of nitric oxide here is about 0.5% of what allowed to use for babies.
Right. So it should
But
be a
that's-
treatment, not a drug.
But it should, yeah, likely what we were trying to do is to say that it's a medical device, which is just easier to pass through regulatory.
Right.
But this is the bottle. So this is actually we designed the label, but the bottle is a new bottle. It's a dual chamber bottle. So it mixes up two sides together when it comes out and create nitric oxide. This bottle is not easy to fill because you need to create specific filling machine. And those are some things that you don't realize
Right.
when you're developing all this, is that it needs, it's great, I can fill it.
Right.
But if you want to fill millions and millions
Right.
of it, and at the beginning we thought, oh, we have a filling machine, we can fill like 100,000 bottles a month, that's a lot, right? It's nothing.
It's nothing.
It's nothing.
And you also designed the package, the bottle.
Yeah, so
to-
we
to
designed the
release it.
bottle. We designed the bottle to have the stability that we need, so this can be stable for 2 years on the shelf, no problem. And then we had to design filling machines.
Right.
So we got a company to build filling machines for us. And now we're in the point where we could sell millions if we had them, but it's a process.
Wow. So your problem is that the demand outweighs the production.
Which may say it's a good problem.
Right. But it's still a problem.
It's still a problem, yes.
So we're wondering if you can share with us the most important skill or characteristic that has enabled you to achieve your goals.
It's probably a few. I'm very persistent. So I think one thing is just don't give up. I could have given up so many times on the way.
Yes.
And just say, this is hard. This is hard. It's hard to get to where you are, and you need to keep going. Second thing is just listen to smart people. You cannot do it on your own, and you cannot make decisions on your own, and you just need to surround yourself. I tell my team that I just surround myself by really smart people, so I'm gonna look smart. So
Advice.
it's just making sure that you pick the right team and you listen to people and you get the right advice.
Yes.
And put the ego aside.
Yes. And as a woman, do you think your challenges have been greater in this realm?
I think in some way women can put the ego aside better.
Yes.
But I think that as a woman in this very man world in biotech, it's challenging. I mean, I've been to a lot of pitch competitions when you have to try and raise money and you're pitching to an audience and they're all tough and they're all men dominant, and you're getting judged for how you look and what you wear and stuff that men never get judged.
Right. They don't have to
right?
deal with that. Right.
So stand and I've had my share of comments to deal with, including there was one pitch competition, I think it was in Boston, and I finished my pitch and I got up and one of the guys came and he says, I think you should win the shoe competition. Okay, I love my shoes. I was great.
Yes.
It's not why I'm here.
Yeah.
And
how did you respond?
And I smiled and I walked away. I didn't say anything. But at the end of the day, I won the peach competition.
Good for you.
And so I stopped by after and I said, well, I guess the shoe competition is not the only one I can win.
Good for
but
you.
it is, you don't want to be mean, but in some ways it's just men, it still exists. Like I was sitting one time around a table and I look around and it's the conference and 80–85% male dominant. So the guy sitting beside me and I said, wow, this is really not a lot of women here. And he looks at me and he says, well, I thought we are over that. Well, maybe coming from a male side, we're over that, but it's sad that it is the case, and I would really encourage girls to go there, to push the limits. I think in general we are not as confident as men, and that's part of the problem. Is we don't believe in ourselves. We don't believe that we can.
Yes.
And I've went through that. It's just I'm never going to be good enough. There's somebody else can do it better. You don't trust yourself enough. It's much more coming from women than men, yes. Right? So I would really encourage every girl that to go there, to try and reach, and don't let anyone tell you you can't.
Yes.
And don't let all these side comments and notes to just stop you, because we can do it, and we can do it as well, if not better.
I think that's the perfect place to end. Thank you so much for this. This was very entertaining and inspirational and educational. We really appreciate you being here with us.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here, really. I'm very flattered, so thank you very much.
Thank you. L'chaim.
Thank you very much, Dr. Regev. Your story is incredibly inspirational. Thank you for sharing it with us. Good evening. My name is Shauna Merker, and along with Sue Hector, I am your Women's Philanthropy Co-Chair. Not being born in Vancouver, I was blown away by how this community gives and provides so much to all of us. Out of appreciation and respect for the philanthropists whose shoulders I stand on, I decided to become a Lion. I can say without a doubt that becoming a Lion has inspired me tremendously. I so value the experience of learning from those who came before me and working with those who will come after. I feel so blessed to be part of such a beautiful community. Now to our next speaker. It is my absolute pleasure and honor to introduce this amazing woman. On April 6th, I attended a PJ Library event featuring Winnie Sandler-Grinspoon and Anita Zucker. I was blown away by the event. I was fortunate to be able to ask Mrs. Zucker a question at the event about being a Lion, and she truly changed my perspective. She is an incredible woman, and I knew we had to have her at our event. Anita is the chair and chief executive officer of one of the largest private companies in the U.S., the Intertek Group, Inc., known as TIG, which was founded by Anita and her late husband, Jerry Zucker, of blessed memory. A daughter of Holocaust survivors, Anita is passionately committed to the concept of Tikkun Olam. She taught elementary school for over 10 years before beginning her work at TIG. She has received multiple honorary degrees, including the Ellis Island Medal of Honor Award, Ernst & Young's Lifetime Achievement Award, and most recently, the 2019 James L. Fisher Award for Distinguished Service to Education. Anita is a passionate Lion of Judah who inspires and encourages Lions to give in her own community and truly embodies what it means to be a Lion. Her commitment to tzedakah and leadership is a true inspiration to me, and I am sure it will be to you as well. I will now hand it over to Josephine.
Anita, as your bio evidences and Shauna's introduction of you, you exemplify and embody leadership in business and in philanthropy. What inspired and what informed the work you do?
Thank you, Josephine, for having me here with all the wonderful Lions of Judah. I'm really excited about this. So I would say I had a couple of different people who inspired me to do the work that I do. And one was my mother. My mother was a Holocaust survivor, and she also survived the loss of my father over 30 years ago. And my mother of blessed memory was incredible. She was the woman who put the spark in me. She never knew she was leading, but she always led, and she always led her 3 daughters through how to live their lives. And she taught us so many skills about being a survivor, but also about resilience, about being able to work with other people, about how critically important it was to forge good relationships with all people. She taught me a lot of those kinds of skills, and those were things that inspired me to do the work that I have gotten involved with, as did my late husband, Jerry Zucker, and he was absolutely amazing. He taught me so much in 21 months, which was really quick. I felt like we were on speed dial, but we knew we had limited time. And so he taught me what I needed to know to be able to maintain the group of people that were his leadership team. And I had to forge and create my own relationships and earn the respect of each of the people that were a part of our leadership team. And you can't do it by acting like you know it all. You have to be willing to learn from others, and you have to be willing to listen. And I think those are 2 really important things. Listening a lot was so important as I began the path of the true leadership of our business, and being able to then go back to the people and say, thank you so much for what you've taught me. And then I taught the people on that team a lot about relationship building. So it was a 2-way street. We had to teach each other. And I've also had other people along the way who didn't know that they were my mentors, but there is a female president at our 2-year college. She and I have worked together now for over 30 years, and she taught me that I had to be fearless. And so as a leader, as long as you're educated and know and are very knowledgeable about the materials that you have to present or the information you need to make decisions, you do have to approach things in a fearless manner.
Well, I must say your response really resonates with me because, first of all, I always speak about my mother with a little bit of a shaky voice. And I'm also one of 3 girls, 3 daughters. I'm the youngest. So I know the enormous role that your husband played in your life from listening to your talks and reading about you, but yet you led with your mother. So that really evokes a lot of emotion in me.
Thank you.
I understand, so just segueing from that your husband's mantra was never be a bystander to hate. How has this principle shaped your activities in the community, especially in the philanthropic community?
So for me, I work across the community. I work with the Jewish community, but I also work with the greater Charleston community. And having that mantra has allowed me to work in the Black community as well, and the Latino community. And this past year, some very interesting things happened, and I made progress in my work with those communities. And so when you can feel accepted by others who don't look like you, that means so much. So actually this year, I received an honorary doctorate from a historically Black university in April, the end of April. And so that, I cried when the president called me to tell me he would like to give me an honorary degree, because I know how hard I have worked for our entire community in Charleston. I work for our children in particular. And so I'm passionate about this work. I'm passionate about our survivors. I'm also passionate about a lot of things. And today, with the social justice issues and what's happened over the past year in particular, don't be a bystander to hate just resonates in every way, shape, and form. Between the pandemic, between what's happened with Asians, what's happened with the African American community or the Black community, and what's happened with our own community with anti-Semitism and the hate. The level of hate in the United States has gone up dramatically with all of these different people, including us. And so that, it just resonates more than it ever has, because we have to stand up for our own people now too, more so than we've had to except in the times of my parents. You know, there was no one to stand up for them. And so I talked to my son today and said, I just need you to know that I'm not going to be quieted by this. I can't be quieted. I have to allow my voice to be heard. We have to stand up for the Jewish community, our Jewish people, but we also have to stand up for the other communities that have been harmed by the injustices that have been dished out by some of our people. And it's unfortunate that we're living in a difficult time right now, but I care so much. It's just the perfect statement. There's another statement that goes with it that my husband taught me. And that statement was to have a sense of urgency and a bias for action. That was one of his keys to success. And it couldn't apply more than now. It applies so well. It applied in COVID. It has applied in what we're seeing in the world today and what's happening. We can't stand back. We can't allow time to go by and not take stands. And so I've just had to make this big decision that I'm going to continue to take stands for the things that I believe in.
What courage and how inspirational. I'm just inspired.
Thank you.
I know that your parents survived the Holocaust and came to America and built a life there. How did their experiences shape and influence you and the work you now do?
Well, first of all, it took courage. It took courage for them to come to America. It took a lot of hard work, persistence, and just the will to survive what they went through. Okay, and then to make a big decision because most of their family went to Israel, and they couldn't go to Israel with them at that time. They didn't have the money to get to Israel, so they were one of the families that highest selected the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society to bring to America. And so in October of 1949, they boarded a ship for the United States. And think of what that must have taken. They knew no English. They had very little money. I think my mother said they got to America with $200. They had a child who was 3 years old, my late sister, who I lost in November, it's just been a really difficult year. And, grief is tough, but my mom and my husband taught me that no matter what, I had to keep going. And so that's what I've chosen to do. And that's another one of those things my mother taught me. I just have to learn to be strong. And it's obvious I've had to be resilient to survive what I'm surviving personally. And what she showed us, she taught us to be honest and to have integrity and to have values that would guide us through life. And I believe in that even for business decisions. I look at the values that I've written down in our company's strategic plan, and I make decisions based on those values because I believe so strongly in them.
What an incredible lesson, what an incredible message of strength and resilience. You are, as your bio spoke of, the recipient of so many awards and honorary degrees. I've really never seen anything like it. But the one award that really fascinates me is the Ellis Island Medal of Honor. I know that Ellis Island is a symbol of hope for so many of the Jews that were fleeing the horrors of the Holocaust. And I remember taking my children there when they were very young. And trying to explain the significance of the little boat trip and the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island. And I just wanted to ask you to speak of the significance of this award to you.
Thank you. Well, this award was so meaningful to me. Standing in that great hall, on Ellis Island was so amazing. It just brought chills to think of my parents and my sister walking through there with whatever little suitcases they each had. So it was really very, very, very special. So annually, this organization chooses to honor people who have contributed to making life in America better and to honor the diversity of the immigrants that have come to America. And so I was lucky to have a wonderful friend nominate me for that award, and I got selected on my first try for that award. I didn't even know about the award until he let me know that he had nominated me. So talk about the honor. It means so much because those are the halls my family walked through when they got here. And to stand there and I had an Israeli gentleman in front of me who had won, I don't know, like a Nobel Prize, basically. It was much the equivalent of that, standing in front of me. And Rita Moreno was in line in the same group I was in to be honored. We were sent up one at a time. But what an incredible moment to be there with the kind of people that I got to be honored with. It was something that blew me away and made me just feel lucky, so lucky to be recognized for work I've tried to do, and for the fact that I do come from a family of immigrants who created a life and gave me the chance. Without my parents surviving, I would never have had the chance, nor my husband and I creating our businesses. We would never have had this chance.
And it symbolizes Ellis Island, the moment of origin, almost, of a rebirth, of a coming to a new country with a new chance.
Absolutely. And I think that's what makes it even that much more special. And, I love that I got to be there. And 2 of my 3 children were with me, and one of my grandchildren came with me. And then some dear friends were with me. And it was truly a most unique and special moment in my life. And I will never forget it.
That is a wonderful, wonderful award in everything that it symbolizes, and acknowledging you for your work. I wanted to ask you, Anita, how has the current COVID-19 pandemic and the challenges that Israel faces in the Middle East, currently much more serious and violent and frightening, shaped your current endeavors?
Sure. Well, COVID for our family has, it's been a difficult ride. Okay, I had a son and a daughter-in-law with COVID, and 2 grandchildren who got COVID. The grandchildren got it from their sports and they gave it to their father. And my daughter-in-law is a nurse practitioner and she got it from a patient at work. But the good news is they're all okay and they don't have the long COVID. So no long-term effects. But from a business perspective, COVID was extremely difficult and we had to learn to pivot immediately. As a business, we were relatively well prepared to send people home to be able to work remotely because about 2 years ago, we decided that we needed to implement more work within the cloud, and we brought in a system, an ERP system, so that we could have electronic reporting and put our data into the cloud, essentially. So we were ready to be able to work remotely because we had that material at our fingertips. And to continue to create the reports. But our businesses needed to also, each individual business had to be prepared to pivot. And what some of you may not be aware of, I happen to be in a lot of businesses in Canada. I'm a hockey mom, but I'm also a hockey enthusiast, and our family's in the hockey industry in Ontario and in Quebec. And unfortunately, due to the lack of rollout of vaccines in Ontario, our businesses that are hockey businesses have been closed now for over a year. And they look like they will be closed perhaps through August, maybe because of the nature of the kind of business that we have, but also because there are not enough people being vaccinated to prevent COVID. And I'm really worried about those businesses and the people that work for me. We're doing our best to keep as much in place as we can, but we have hockey. We have arenas that have, pads of ice, that have restaurants, pro shops, and we can't be open. So that part's been difficult. In the United States, our hockey business, we also own a rink with 2 pads of ice, and we have hockey for youth, and our 14 and under AA team just won a national championship. So that was huge, from Charleston, South Carolina in the South. We have figure skaters. We have had a Canadian choreographer who lived in Charleston for a few years, and she choreographed figure skating for a number of different very famous people, including U.S. champion Nathan Chen, and a number of Canadians. So, you know, that's been hard, but we've learned to pivot and we've learned to get through. And so little by little, our businesses are rebuilding. And, you know, thanks to the lessons we've learned and the resilience that we know we must grab a hold of, we're getting through it. And we have made sure that we offer vaccines whenever we can. They're readily available in the United States. You can now offer them in your places of work and invite the people that work for you to come in and get vaccinated. So at least I feel good about that. But in Israel, right, Israel's been a model when it comes to how to deal with COVID. So yeah. I'm proud of Israel for that work. I'm very worried for Israel in terms of what happened over the past 11 days of the fighting and the concerns. Well, I have family there. I'm concerned for all of the lives of our brethren, okay, our brothers, sisters. My cousins are there. My aunt and uncle they're there. I have a lot of cousins. They have a lot of children. And of course, I'm concerned for all of them. I'm concerned for our state. That is our place, Israel. And that's why I have my Lion of Judah, by the way. It stands for humanitarian work. And so now we need to work with our federations and make sure that we're helping, because not only do we have to help Jews all over the world and in our own countries, but we really have to help Israel. And my mom taught me this too. She truly was an amazing woman, but she loved Israel. And she said, we didn't have Israel when the Holocaust began. She said, always protect Israel, always do everything you can to support Israel, because we need it. We need a place to go. God forbid we have to. So my hope is that somehow someone will be able to help the Palestinians and the Arabs understand that life is more important. Let's not kill each other. Let's work together. And I'm thrilled with the opportunities through the Abraham Accords that have happened. I actually got the opportunity to meet the ambassador from the UAE to the US a few years ago because of my work in aerospace. And I get their emails regularly. And the good news is they write very nice things about Israel, just FYI. So it's really good to know that there is a true relationship. And so somehow if we can help Hamas to understand that they too could benefit and that the people could benefit. You know, I mean, it makes me really sad to see how many people have nothing. So my hope is that somehow the politicians will get their act together, because you and I can support through helping with monetary, you know, giving. We can also help by going to Israel and showing solidarity. Sure. And I really want to get there as soon as I can. But at the same time, we have to be realistic and hope that the politicians will do the right thing and get together and be willing. Sometimes we'll have to compromise. You know, I care enough that I don't want them to compromise everything they've created, but at the same time, we're going to have to find some way to help those people to realize they don't want all of us dead.
Thank you so much. I've gotten a couple of notes from our producer that we have 2 minutes left. Okay. I've never had time go so fast. So now I'm trying to look at my 7 questions that are left. You talk a lot about being connected to Jewish life, Jewish values, religion, faith, Jewish choices. Can you give us sort of a snapshot, elevator pitch answer about how that shapes your philanthropy and your beliefs and your values?
Absolutely. So I've been involved with federations since the 80s. And then in 1987, when my 3rd child was born, I became a Lion of Judah. And it took time for me to understand and be taught why. Okay, and now for me, this means so much. This is a piece of heart. This is one of those things that means so much because it means taking care of people and saving lives. And so for me, part of what I do in my Judaism is I work with organizations to make a difference and an impact. And whether it's PJ Library and making sure that our Jewish children all over the world are getting materials to read that have Jewish content, that touches all families, whether they're Orthodox, conservative, Reform, or mixed families. but it gives them the opportunity to learn. I happen to be conservative in terms of my Judaism, but I also belong to an Orthodox shul. And I love both of them. I've learned a tremendous amount. I learn with my children. I support our Jewish education because without our school, we lose the heart of our community. The school is what allows us to bring young rabbis with their children and families to our community. And so I, besides being an advocate for whole community, I'm a huge advocate for my Jewish community. And being a part of Federation, it's the umbrella organization for all the Jewish organizations. And I believe in working with all of them to have the continuity of Judaism for my grandchildren, your grandchildren, and their grandchildren.
How do you create a culture of involvement for women? How do you inspire women to get involved and to lead?
So you have to work with them, and you have to find yourself in groups of women. And I really enjoy working with women, but I also love to give them the opportunity to lead when I feel they're ready. And the best part is when you see that you've selected the right people to work with you, and then you give them that chance to lead and they do it well. How do you create the culture? You have to just do a lot, and you have to involve the people and bring them with you and show them the importance. Create passion. Women have to have passion if they want to be leaders.
Absolutely.
Passion around those topics that mean so much to them. When you're passionate, you can gain the ability to learn how to be the leader, but you've got to have a passion that drives you. And so I try to get all kinds of people, not just women, involved and be passionate. But as Lions, we can work together. There are over 18,000 of us in the world. We need to work together, and we can make so much happen. And in our community, we get together a couple of times a year as the Lions of Judah to do special projects and to do special things. But our federation gets together regularly to promote programs to just have the continuity of community and show the rest of the community that we support what's happening and the needs of our community. So you can build the culture. My business has a culture of tikkun olam, repair of the world. And I want that for everyone. I talk about it a lot. I teach our community about it. But tikkun olam, it's about repair of the world, making someone's life better. That's what we need to be doing.
Anita, I have never wished so much to have more time speaking with somebody, but the time has just flown. So hopefully we can have another conversation. But at this point, I have to thank you for sharing your life story and your life's work with us. And even though we didn't have a lot of time, I think we've given the feeling and the ta'am and the flavor of what you have done and how you got to where you are to our participants. On behalf of all the Vancouver Lion of Judahs, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, not only for the work you do, but that you have reinforced and reinvigorated our commitment to Tikkun Olam. Thank you, Anita.
Thank you so much, Josephine. It's been an absolute honor to be with you today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anita and Josephine. That was truly inspirational. This evening has been about you, the Lions of Judah, and the inspiring role you play in our community. As Lion of Judah co-chair for 2021, I would like to thank you on behalf of the organization and on behalf of our community for your support. Throughout the annual campaign, we saw women's giving, led by all of you, inspire the overall campaign and indeed the whole community. Thank you to Shauna Merker and Sue Hector for the truly outstanding job they did in 2020 as chairs of Women's Philanthropy. We have heard many powerful stories tonight about the strength of women. As women philanthropists, we are leading the way in giving and in the transfer of our Jewish values, including the mitzvah of tzedakah, from generation to generation. On a personal note, I feel blessed to have strong women who have guided me and my family, and both my mother and my mother-in-law are Lions of Judah. Also recently, my mom found her mom's Lion of Judah pin. We never knew my Nana was a lion, as although her belief in tzedakah was strong, she performed her acts of philanthropy quietly. Each one of you here tonight inspires me with your strength and generosity. Your gifts help take the annual campaign to new heights for our community in 2020. It has been an honor to be here this evening, and I would like to thank all of our amazing volunteers who have made this happen. Josephine Nadel, Shauna Merker, and Sue Hector. I would also like to thank Ricky Thal and the entire staff of the Jewish Federation for all of their hard work on this event. Mazel tov once again to our new Lions. And thank you all for being here tonight. We couldn't do it without you. Your support and leadership are greatly appreciated.
לשיר ביחד,
אך קולי הולך לבד בשיר על יום אחר בארץ המובטחת,
מתנדנד מצד אל צד. אני זוכר, כן, כשבאתי לבחינות,
הכל נשכח, כן, מילים ומנגינות,
ואז חשבתי, כן, שהכל אבוד, שאין לי שום סיכוי, אני חוזר